It was a huge night for boxing, man. You had the first big fight we've really had since the pandemic. We've talked about it on this show. It feels like it's just been Deadsville as far as talking about the sport. Just what the realities of it is, you have promoters who want pieces of the gate. It's a sport that hasn't been able to roll forth without making competitive matchups that people will watch. And I think they were also at a crossroads because I think that they thought when they first came back, it was going to be enough just to have sports back for people to tune in. And I think that was the case early on, especially I think the UFC benefited from that. But now as we're seeing, sports really has to step up their game. We've seen ratings take a dip pretty much everywhere, especially the closer we get to election season, all that type of stuff. So with that being said, last night we had a huge boxing match for all of the lightweight belts, and it was exciting. Vasyl Lomachenko against Teófimo Lopez. We have a new champion as a new undisputed champion as Teófimo won yesterday on every judge's scorecards. Unanimous decision for him, 116, 112 on one of them, 119, 109, and 117, 111. All went for Lopez. I don't want to harp too much on the 119, 109 card. I feel like that's being a sourpuss at a fun party. Like, you're just going to be the guy who's like, but what about this card? Yeah, it wasn't a good card by Julie Letterman. I don't know. Why? I think she gave around 11 to Lomachenko, and the rest she gave to Teófimo Lopez. Hard to impress, I guess. I was right in line with the 116, 112 card. In fact, I actually looked at that card and matched round for round with that particular judge, and it was who was that? Tim Cheatham. Yeah, Tim Cheatham had it 116, 112, and I mirror his. He gave 1 through 7 all to Teófimo. That's the same way I went. 8 through 11 all to Lomachenko, and then round 12 to Teófimo, and that's exactly how I scored it. A lot of people were getting mad at Andre Ward for his draw card. Draw's not that hard. If you have a 116, 112 card, draw's not that hard to get to. If the 2 rounds you'd have to in particularly circle to get to draw would be rounds 2 and round 7, which I believe he both gave to Loma, and that's how he ends up there, because you flip the 8-4, gets to 6-6. It's not that hard. And then 117, 112, the big difference was Steve Weisfeld gave round 9 to Teo. He didn't give like the whole late run to Lomachenko. So that's how the judges broke it down. I think the big stories out of this one, I think that Teófimo, I said this last week, I compared this fight a lot to Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia, where I think we think of a guy as one thing, but maybe he'll show something as another. Now, I picked Lomachenko to win this fight. I said he was going to win by a decision, so I whiffed on that one. But I did say that perhaps we're going to see an element to Teófimo's game that we did not see or haven't seen, because it's very early in his career. We had Andre Ward on this week, and it's such a big leap for a guy 15 fights in, 23 years old, to jump into these types of waters. And he didn't look shook at all. He very, very composed start to this thing. And they mentioned on the broadcast how Lomachenko likes to start slow on these fights, which he certainly did, but he did it to a next element. I think that there was a conscious effort by them that they wanted to let Teófimo let out the gas a little bit, but I think a couple of things. One, I think they waited a little bit too long on that regard. And they also, I think, probably figured he was going to go for broke a little bit more. And he really didn't. He was very composed. Jab was working well. He kept finding that home at the body. So he was doing a lot of racking up rounds. I think it really did take a while for this fight to get cooking, because there wasn't much resistance from Lomachenko. He really did seem like he was trying to size things up, eye things up. It didn't seem early on like there was a great speed advantage for him either. And I do think that swung once we got into those later stages. Once we got to rounds 8 through 11, you did really see a big hand speed advantage for Lomachenko, but he just, either wasn't willing to pull the trigger early on or just didn't see those openings or didn't want to risk it. I'm sure he's going to be kicking himself, second guessing himself, all that type of stuff. But Lopez, I mean, he kept finding a home for that. He kept finding a home for the body shots, which I think is smart for a guy when you're taking on a guy like Lomachenko. He kept saying in the lead up to this, people treat him like he's a god. They come in there mentally beaten. He did not. He was just going to find the simple openings. He took a lot of, I think in this fights, for the home run hitter, he was in there and it was satisfied going in there and just going 4 for 4 with 4 singles. I think that there was no real need for him to find like he needed to really impose his will. And if anything, the guy who had to take the home run cuts by the end of this was Lomachenko. And then you get to the spots of, well, he's got to take out a bigger man. He's got to chop down the tree. And I think that he probably felt pretty good about it, in 10 and 11. But, it's a big boy he's got to take down. And the thing that was impressive mostly to me was round 12 from Lopez. I like the fact that Teo was able to go out there and really put a stamp on the fight, because you don't want a performance like that. You don't want the long-lasting image to be, oh, did he just rack up rounds and, just kind of, did Lomachenko run out of time, And it is what it is. A win's a win. But I think it was good for Lopez to have that lasting image of he's taken all the belts and he took that last round from Lomachenko. He really broke Lomachenko's will. Vasyl didn't really have a lot of firepower left. He seemed a little bit worn out. And so I think that's good for Lopez that he, even though clearly he didn't need the round on the scorecards because he was comfortably ahead. So whatever, he would have won 7-5 on his closest card. Clearly would have won easily on Julie Letterman's card, and on the 17 he would have been fine. But I still think it puts a good stamp on the fight for him. And if he is going to be the face of this division, or if he ends up going up, it'll be interesting to see. He said he might move up to 140, or he might go and take on Devin Haney. I think him versus Haney would be fun. Devin's going to fight in a couple weeks down here at the Hard Rock. He has a piece of the 135 championship. Lopez is, I guess, the franchise champion. You can never figure out. WBC, they make up rules as it goes. But I think it would be fun for those two just to go on, because I would like to see. I talked about this with Andre this week. I would like to see the young guys. There's so much potential here of these guys, living out their rivalries. Now, the one good thing is I don't think this is, he needed to get this fight in with Lomachenko probably soon, because I don't think that, Teófimo is going to be in this division long term, but he still is 23. So we still have time for him to go and fight Devin Haney if they're able to make that fight. But at least if he doesn't, Devin Haney's still young too. So I still think there's some move up for him as well. But all in all, for Lomachenko, I think people will probably be, was this finally the fight where, did the layoff affect him at all? Was that part of the slow start to him? And then also just, did he finally meet somebody who was at the crossroads of size and skill who, he just couldn't take out. He definitely couldn't mentally break him, which was great to see. And it seemed like it was teetering that way. There was. That's why I think that last round was so important for Lopez, to not just feel like you beat a Lomachenko who maybe was a little bit rusty, that was out of the game, and that you kind of, ran out the clock on. Like the fact that he went and took that last round after you had been mentally beaten a little bit, you had taken some shots, you were getting whipped a little bit in the back half of the fight, you went and and took that performance. So I think that was something that was super impressive from his standpoint. Lomachenko also, I just think that the output was just a little bit too, the thing that's going to be interesting is, and I think that he's going to kick himself too, is, he did have to take some risks. It even got, he almost had to ugly it up a little bit. We saw the headbutts, we saw a little bit of the holding and hitting and stuff like that. And I definitely don't think if you were going to say, well, who's going to come in there and do that type of stuff, you probably would have thought, oh, it's usually the naturally bigger guy. But people, this is one of those performances where you really get a sense of Lopez being more skilled and more well-rounded than people gave him credit for, just because he's steamrolling fools at 23 years old. And those are always the fun performances to go watch, that he's able to bring all that stuff to the table. So ultimately, really good performance by Teófimo. I think he's a great guy to have as the face of the sport. The sport's and the sport's going in that direction, man. I think one of the things that's been it's been frustrating that we've been in this spot where it really felt like 2020 was a lost year for boxing outside of the Fury Wilder rematch. Everything else has kind of just been at a standstill, other than a couple of fights sprinkled in here and there. One of the things that was interesting, they announced this week on the broadcast that Terrence Crawford, he's going to be taking on Kell Brook. And they were like, oh, he's taking on the best guy that's available. And that's kind of garbage. Like, we saw what happened tonight happen for the lightweight division. That needs to happen for the welterweight division. Like Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, they need to fight in 2021. You never know when this stuff is going to dry up. Sports has all seemed very finite in these crazy times. And I think that all this jockeying that people do is a huge waste. Look, Teófimo's camp could have probably sucked dry that IBF title and taken on mandatories here and mandatories there and been fine, and he would have headlined on ESPN cards and all that type of stuff. But what huge guts it took for that camp, to really throw their young fighter into the deep end. A father, who clearly talks a lot and bit a lot, and his mouth wrote a lot of checks, but his son cashed him tonight. His son had plenty of balance in the bank to back up his father's words. And now you have a position where this guy has the opportunity to really be a star of boxing for a long time, or at least be the root of a lot of rivalries that we could start with either him, Devin Haney, they could ever work out anything with Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, all these types of big names that are big on social media, that could talk a lot of trash, that could hype a lot of fights. It was great. And I think that is the thing that's exciting about these matchups, is we have not only a great talented young champion, we have a charismatic young champion, and the potential for him to have a lot of rivals who are also charismatic. I saw Devin Haney tweet out, let's see, he tweeted out last night, bet you they won't mention my name on the broadcast. He was right about that. They did not. But it was, let's see. Afterwards, he goes, Lopez Haney 2021, let's do it for all the belts. Also said I'd been said Loma was whack. Well, listen, you didn't take him on, so let's not get crazy to that stuff. But Devin's gonna fight in a couple weeks. He's gonna fight Yorioki Gamboa. He should win that fight, even though I love home team. I love Gamboa. He should win that fight. And if they could do that fight in 2021, it'd be fantastic. It's going to be a matter also of who's going to sign whom, I guess, and who they can get to the right side of the tracks. Will it be, getting Devin to ESPN, which honestly they should really do. Like, if you're going to talk about sending Lopez over to the zone or sending Haney over to ESPN, like, the way it should go is Devin Haney should get his butt over to ESPN. He should do the car wash. He should go on First Take, all that type of stuff. Just a monster for him. It's I know DAZN probably won't want to let him go. Maybe they'll want to do some crossover or whatever. I don't know. But I really hope that that boxing goes in this new direction of not letting these stupid holds up. Like, get everybody involved. Get these guys fighting each other. Get these guys in the ring with one another so we can, be able to see these guys. If it's not him, then I guess we're going to see, I think, George Kambosos fights in a couple of weeks. Was he fight the 31st? Fights Lee Selby, and I think the winner of that's going to fight as the mandatory for one of Lopez's belts. So, it's great, though. It was a great night for him. Congratulations to Teófimo Lopez. Lomachenko will be interesting. I don't know. He's only 32. They made him seem like a grandpa in there as far as and it is weird. Like everybody else in this division who seems to be blossoming is very young. Lomachenko's 32. That's not old. But maybe it's a case of, does he want to go down in weight again? Just to reestablish himself. Are there more fun matchups down there? It seems like he could be a little bit more dominant down there. I think we have seen with him going up, he's shown tremendous blood and guts, but he has not been as dominant as he was when he was making people quit in the midst of the ring. And I think that's what we want most from Lomachenko. So it'll be an interesting fallout. But this night belongs to Lopez for sure.